day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome in. It is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Monday. How about this? The final Monday of November. Boy, you blink your eyes and football season just like that. We're talking about playoff brackets and conference championship games and playoff pictures in the NFL. Crazy, crazy stuff. I'm Jeff Parles. Ryan McCormick's alongside. Chris Andrews is here as well. Before we get into everything, gentlemen, we have to do it because we are now less than a week away from this having to be submitted.
Guaranteed.
$25,000 guaranteed, $5 a card for the college football rivalry jackpot parlay card. 15 games that have become even harder to predict after what we saw over the weekend.
If Saturday was any indication, there's
luck.
not too many gimmies on that.
I'd say good luck at this point.
Sure.
But 15 games. Of course, Ohio State, Michigan's on there.
All of which are on Saturday.
All are Saturday.
Yeah,
yes.
Saturday by 9 o'clock, you got to have them in. So we got football on Thursday and Friday. Come on down, watch those games. Saturday, get that card in. And somebody's going to win. It's not like,
Guaranteed winner.
Yeah, guaranteed somebody's going to win.
Just throwing this out there. Do not show up at 8:58 on Saturday morning.
I'd rather you
You
not.
will not
Don't
be
do
able
that.
to get your ticket.
Don't
No.
do that. Get here if you're. Do it on Thanksgiving if you happen to be in
We're
town.
open 24 hours
Do it
a
whenever
day,
you-
every 365 days a year.
Yeah, do it anytime but 2 minutes before the games on Saturday.
It'll
Get
be
here
fun.
early on
It'll be
Saturday.
fun.
I mean, Saturday's slate is awesome.
Yeah.
All these games, 9 a.m. You got to be in by 9 a.m. because
Friday's slate's pretty good, too.
Yeah, Friday's good. Friday's good. I wish the Egg Bowl was on Thanksgiving, by the way. It just doesn't feel right that it's not anymore. But regardless, a lot of fun there. $5, as many cards as you want here at the South Point, up at the Rampart. Or if you happen to be watching us in Utah and are driving through Mesquite, if you want to stop in at Casablanca or Virgin River, get the cards in as well.
We got plenty of business down there.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
don't forget, if it goes over the 25,000, everything goes back to the players.
Yes.
So
We don't keep
Split
a
the pot,
penny.
yeah. Yep.
Everything goes back.
What was the number on the NFL Week 1 this year?
almost 40,000.
Almost 40,
Yeah,
right?
it's 30, 38, 39,
A
something
lot
like
of
that.
a good amount of money for the players there, and they're undefeated in that first go around in Week 1 in the NFL. All right, let's go to tonight's game, and then we'll get into whatever we want to call this weekend, because both college football and
was a fun one, yeah.
and the end of that 10 a.m. Pacific slate in the NFL yesterday just totally lost its mind. But Chris, tonight we conclude what has been a hell of a football weekend with what I think is as good of a game as we may see all season. The Harbaugh, Jim, John, all ready to go in Los Angeles. Chargers, if you want the Chargers, right now the best number in the country of Chargers flat minus 110 is behind us right here at the South Point, plus the 3.
I haven't checked my Baltimore outs to see if you get 3 flat over there.
I see only 1-3 flat. It's a bunch of 3 even and such. So
I'm just joking.
Yeah,
you
but,
might find 3 flat in Baltimore, but
yeah,
nowhere else.
no. 3, Chris. This really also just based off the way this is just toggled between 2.5 and 3. The totals It's weird to say that it's a toggler of a total, but it's kind of done that as well. Yeah. Just unbelievable betting action for this game heading into tonight.
Huge betting action tonight. And if today is any indicator for the week that will be, it's going to be strong. We had one guy come in today. I had seen him before, but it's been a while. He rattled the board for over $100,000 with, about 7-8 different games. And he was one guy. Another guy bet me 25 on something. And, so, we got great games this weekend. He had a lot of things to choose from, but he's still betting games. I think he bet who's Kent State playing? He bet against Kent State. So smart man there. He bet on Buffalo against Kent State. So still the worst rated team I've ever had in my current system. That's I probably should just hand him the 10,000 now and just get it over with.
He at least laid the good number, right?
He did lay a good number.
That's 21 in that game, 22 now.
Yep.
Yeah, he laid the 21.
Yeah, that's brutal. It's the end of the road for the 50 straight days of football because there's no game on Wednesday this week. So, but like you said, Chris, not just football. This is feast week in college basketball.
Yeah.
We already had a
great game today.
Monster upset in Maui where Memphis.
We have a good game later today.
Iowa State, Auburn.
Yeah, that's another.
How is that a first-round Maui game? Legitimately 2 of the 10 best teams.
I didn't do the seedings, Jeff. I don't know.
It's just because so many good teams are in Maui.
Well, North Carolina is playing Dayton, Colorado is playing Michigan State right now. Again, two-time defending champs are
UConn.
On the loser side of that bracket. UConn, loser of Auburn, Iowa State is an absurd 5th place game, which we very well may get in Maui later this week. Just Chris, real quick before we get into the weekend, I just want to bring this up on tonight's game, and then, of course, Ryan and I will go through everything. I just want to go back to a point you have made a ton on Baltimore this year, where it is so hard to get 20-plus years of thoughts out of your head on what the Baltimore Ravens are at this point, where since they moved from Cleveland, what have we thought? Monster defense.
Defense first. Yeah.
Monster defense. The offense would just need to do what they need to, just what is needed more so than having to go win them games. This year it's flipperoo, where obviously Baltimore's offense has been the number 1 offense in the NFL, and their defense just stinks. And that's why even against the number 1 rated defense by a lot of metrics so far in the Chargers, we're sitting at 51 tonight on that total.
Yeah, I've said it. It's hard to just not envision a John Harbaugh team that's a defensive team. Instead, we have the Jim Harbaugh team, which is the defensive team. But you could see, though, that they were raised with very fundamental football in their blood.
Yep.
I think this year's Raven team has gotten away from what John would really like to do. But give him credit, he's doing with what he's got, which happens to be a great offense. But I'm really looking forward to this game tonight. I kind of favor the Chargers a little bit, but I wouldn't go crazy over it. And I'm not sure who we're going to need at this point. Right? I can tell you what I don't need is a 3. Well, that I can tell you I don't need. We got that in your outfit, the Bears. Man, that was bad because I did this much business on the game. -3 plus 3.5, -3 plus 3.5. It's one of those games. We don't need anything. Talking to Michael, going, we don't need anything except the 3. Bingo.
Oh, that wasn't even the craziest game of the early slate yesterday. No. That's the ridiculous part of it.
But by the way, let me say, some of that crazy stuff actually helped us. But that one was a bad one.
Well, let's go to yesterday then.
The final 4 minutes of the Dallas game.
Well, if you had the
that helped us. That was good.
If you had the under in that game. If you had the under in that game, you are just riding along. You're coasting to the finish line. It's 13-9 with 5 minutes to go, and it's
looks pretty good.
All right, we're in great shape here. Not so fast. 41 points in the last 5 minutes of regulation pushed this game to a 34-26 final in favor of Dallas. Huge actually the biggest underdog to win this year in the NFL.
Oh, is that right?
Outright, yeah. So far, no one else has won by, I think the biggest dog that won this year was 8 actually going into this week. I have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that is the case, which was New England week 1. New England week 1 was 8.5.
Beat Cincinnati.
So 8.5 was that on New England. But Chris, this game had 2 kick returns for touchdowns. including the
One
onside.
an onside
One
kick,
of them an
yeah.
onside kick, which was just stupid that they returned it. They gave Washington another chance. Had 2 missed extra points. Had 2 blocked punts. That's the first game in NFL history to ever have that all happen in it. And look, Washington nearly had Lightning strike a second time, and then they missed the PAT after. Look, I've seen a lot of ridiculous defense through my lifetime in all levels of football. I've never seen anything like what Dallas did on that McLaurin touchdown, and still found a way to get.
Yeah.
What was happening there? They left them
Bad
wide,
angles.
They
I
left
don't
them
know.
wide open, and then it looked like they were attempting not to tackle him under any circumstance.
It's funny. Jeff Fogel, a friend of this network and the show, he writes from Asia. So he wakes up in the morning and gets the final scores. Little did he know, once he started looking at the box score, exactly what happened in this game. By the way, everybody should read Jeff's analyses of these games. He goes through them very thoroughly. Sometimes it's almost better to be in Asia and then go through, and so you don't have to watch it live, because. But anyway, his article was pretty funny this morning about that game in particular.
Incredible. It's just an incredible, zany ending in a game that really, until the last 5 minutes, was a pretty awful game in all honesty.
Pretty boring, yeah.
Just absolutely boring, for lack of a better description. But yesterday, though, Chris, you said the Chicago game was a horrible one for you guys with a landing Minnesota 3, where, I mean, the fact that game even got to overtime was pretty ridiculous. The only onside kick recovered in the NFL this year happened. And then I'll say this, Ryan, even though they're not winning games, Caleb Williams, the last 2 weeks since the offensive coordinator change, has looked significantly better.
I'm telling you, man, the coaching staff cost this kid the Rookie of the Year. And if Caleb Williams over the final 5 games, final 5 games this season can look like he did yesterday, there's no reason that he doesn't have an argument to win Rookie of the Year.
Well, it's interesting because the offensive Rookie of the Year market is totally different from 3 weeks ago.
Daniels is
down to about a minus 150 favorite.
Guys
in
have
most
kind
shops.
of figured him out, and he's going one way, and Caleb Williams going the other way.
Well, I can't believe I'm saying this. Bo Nix right now is
Bo
the
Nix
guy to
looks
really
great.
be looking at, because Denver is 7-5 and right there in the AFC playoff picture. But Chris, I wanted the one team I want to ask you about from this whole weekend is what we watched last night, where the Philadelphia Eagles just continued to steamroll everyone. And I know everyone's narrative is, how stupid could the Giants be? All that stuff. The biggest thing that I have more than anything is the Eagles, who were a pretty complete roster as they were, added the final piece in order to take the leap back to what they were 2 years ago. And now Barkley had over 300 yards of total offense last night. Quite frankly, that game was, even though it was close for a little bit, Philadelphia was in control most of the way. They win by 17.
Yeah.
You got a heck of a 1-2 punch in the NFC now with Philadelphia and Detroit, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it, about 5 games in a row that they've really looks like they've been on this plateau.
It's since the bye week now for Philadelphia, where
and the early narrative was, Sirianni's maybe lost the clubhouse and everything else. But go back, was it week 2 or 3, whatever it was? Barkley dropped that pass.
Atlanta, week 2.
Week 2. I mean, if he doesn't drop that pass, which was right in his hands, and the kid is a good receiver, too, is a very good receiver for a running back. He should have had that. The whole narrative for the entire year changed on at that point in time on Philly. Now, it has changed since then, but we would have never had that early kind of dismissal of Philadelphia and of Sirianni. But he's rallied the troops. Now, again, we don't know oftentimes except for what we read. But, the word that I get, that I read is, Jalen Hurts is a great locker room guy. Saquon Barkley, a great locker room guy. They have a great offensive line. A lot of times your team can revolve around, because those are the guys doing the dirty work, And right now this team, I mean, they probably, off the top of my head, I'm just thinking of my power ratings. Neutral field, they'd probably be about a 4-point dog to Detroit. But, a couple weeks ago, they'd have been a 6-7 point dog. Now they're about a 4-point dog, and that team's coming. And I'll tell you what, you can run. Now, Detroit can run the ball pretty good, too, by the way. Yeah. But you can run the ball like Philly can. That's going to be a hard team. That's going to be a hard out, whoever takes them out.
I mean, the top of the NFC is so strong with those two. And, boy, if you're going to give me Oh, nice. Well, add the home field in for Detroit.
Yeah.
Give me.
They have my highest home field advantage, by the way.
You're giving me 6.5 points, 6 points. That's going to be hard to pass up if that's the scenario. I think Philadelphia will close the gap, though, even further over the next month plus, I would say.
Let me say a word about home field advantage.
Yeah.
The way I do them, and I try to make them as objective and numerical as possible, they just blow out a lot of teams at home. Yeah. I'm not sure they're going to blow out Philly.
They shouldn't.
I doubt it. I doubt anybody's going to blow out Philly. So that right there, maybe you have to reduce that home field advantage a little bit.
Well, Chris, you had mentioned Philly, in order to beat Detroit, is going to have to slow down the run game. And I talked to Jeff last week. I had found a stat. The Eagles, under Nick Sirianni, 63 games as a head coach, has prevented the opposing team has had the opposing team rush for less than 100 total yards in 29 of 63.
That's pretty good.
That is pretty damn good.
Well, I'll say one thing, too, about, watching the Detroit game yesterday, and that was a bad game for us, and I thought we had a chance. But I've never, and go back really all year, I've never seen running backs that are so hard to tackle. I mean, the yards after contact. Yeah, both guys. Yards after contact. And I don't have the number, so I'm just speaking, anecdotally here. Right. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. Those guys break a lot of tackles. Yeah. It is not easy to get to. And you know what still drives me crazy? It was when they come up and you hit the guy as hard as you can. Tackling him is more important than just hitting him. Tackle the guy.
Yeah.
Before we let you go back to work, Chris, I just have to ask you, Saturday, which was insane by any measure.
That was a good day.
I have to imagine. Ole Miss, it started at 9 a.m. They bet Ole Miss like everyone knew the result.
Sure.
And Ole Miss loses outright.
Yeah.
Then you go throughout the day, and it was middle slate was actually the tame slate, all things considered. And then you get to nighttime, and Alabama, 3 points. 3 points against Oklahoma.
Bama was one of those games where, if you just looked at the straight bets, it was pretty even. I had so many parlays and money lines and everything running to Alabama. It was unbelievable.
And that game was, and look, credit to Venables, who had what should have been the game plan against Milroe all season long. You are not going to get more than 5 yards at any point on the ground and beat us with your arm. And he couldn't.
No.
And now the playoff race is completely flipped on its head, where Georgia, who looked like they had no shot of making the SEC championship game, clinched the berth on Saturday night.
They still don't look that good to me.
Well, you're telling me giving up 28 to UMass isn't good, Chris?
They were actually struggling in the first quarter and a half, I would say.
No, this is ridiculous. 21 to UMass. 21 might as well be 46 to UMass.
Yeah.
Hey, UMass did cover, though, getting 42, losing by 38.
And all of a sudden, South Carolina's in the playoff hunt?
Well,
some guys are saying it. So I'm not sure it's true.
So
but
Ryan
and I
actually were talking about this. Ryan and I were talking about this before the show. The most interesting, South Carolina Clemson actually under the radar.
It's on the card.
On the card. Under the radar is a very important game.
Yes, it is.
Because it's Clemson, non-conference game for Clemson. So even if they lose, if Miami goes to the Dome and loses to Syracuse, or SMU somehow loses at home to Cal, or actually SMU's already in. Excuse me, it would just be the Miami thing. If Miami goes to the Dome and loses to Syracuse, Clemson's in the ACC title game.
Yeah.
And that changes the whole everything in the playoff picture.
There's still some visualization that needs to happen because we still have, 7, 8? How many votes? 9 votes? 9 actual votes to get in because you have the 5 conference championships.
So it's 7.
7. I'm sorry, I keep thinking 14. It's 12. Yeah. So you have to look impressive, Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I like South Carolina in that game, and I think we had talked about it earlier. I think it might have been on this show, one of the other ones. I thought South Carolina might be the favorite. I opened them at 2. They laid me the 2. I'm up to 2.5 with Clemson the favorite. But I think South Carolina has a big shot. There's a couple other games too. I don't want to go too far because I'm over my time right now. Mm-hmm. But a couple games. Try to think of the psychology, and I'm not sure. The game that jumps out to me is Boise, because Boise's in the championship. But do they have to score? Again, visual points, and then Oregon State, they're playing for a chance to go to a bowl game.
Yeah,
and I had them. I was 3-1 by the way on the show.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, and Oregon State was one of my plays. And they won outright as a pretty big dog. They're not bad. But did they play their Super Bowl last week? I don't know. Are they going to try to win a bowl, get to a bowl game by winning this week? So there's a lot of psychology involved with some of these things this week. So I would say just read your papers and see if you get any hints from coaches and stuff like that. It's going to be an interesting week.
Yeah, that's a very interesting game because Boise right now would be getting a bye. That's the only thing that
right.
would like.
But if they win by 3, that might not be getting the bye.
Well, if they win by 3 and then beat UNLV by 3 next week, if Arizona State or Iowa or whoever the hell wins the Big 12 wins back-to-back games by 3 touchdowns, that's flipping.
Yeah,
even if it doesn't deserve to be the case. So, all right, Chris.
Have a great rest of the show.
We will.
We'll see you
Wednesday.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
We'll see you on Wednesday.
See you
Yep, exactly. Chris Andrews, everyone. All right, Ryan, into tonight's game we go. And what a game it is, as we talked about at the outset. Huge action game here at the South Point.
Yep.
Just for the book's perspective, just don't land on Baltimore by 3 points, which is where the line is at right now. Ravens 3-point favorites in this one against the Los Angeles Chargers on the road in L.A. And Ryan, I'll open it up for you here because I think this is an unbelievably good game here tonight.
Oh, no question. It's an unbelievably good game. I mean, you got the Ravens entering this one at 7-4, second place in their division, coming off a road loss against the Steelers and get an extra day to go into the Harbaugh Bowl. And then the other side, the Chargers, are entering on a 4-game win streak, trying to keep pace with the Chiefs in their division, but both teams sitting firmly in playoff position. And then obviously the one thing that everybody knows about this one is that the two Harbaughs are coaching. And so it's the third matchup between the brothers as NFL head coaches. Both of the prior were won by John. The first was 13 years ago yesterday, 2011, Thanksgiving. The Niners put up 6 points and the Ravens put up 16 with only 1 touchdown. 16-6 was the final. And then obviously the Super Bowl in 2013, the Ravens win 34-31, which wasn't really a close game until the Niners came back after the power went out. So those are the ones that the matchups that we know. And then if you just broaden it to being the brothers as coaches, Jim is a 51-22-1 head coach, almost a 700 win percentage or 70% win percentage. John Harbaugh is a 167-103 head coach, a 62% win percentage. So you combine them together, 218 wins, 125 losses, and 1 tie. The two brothers have a 62% win percentage as head coaches in the National Football League. Who's got it better than them? Nobody.
Right, there we go. Yeah, I got you, man.
But yeah, so it's getting into this one specifically. We had talked about the Ravens earlier in the show. We know them for being a defensive-heavy team, and that has not been the case this year. They're one of the worst pass defenses in the National Football League, but they still have one of the best rush defenses in the National Football League. They are first in opponent rushing yards per attempt, second in allowed rushing yards per game, and third in opponent rushing attempts per game. They've allowed 100 total rushing yards in a game in 3 of 11 this season, but all 3 of those were in the last 5 weeks. And then on their pass defense, they are 32nd in allowed passing yards per game, 32nd in completions allowed per game, 26th in opponent yards per attempt, and 22nd in passer rating allowed. So that's great for Justin Herbert tonight. And the Chargers, if you like them, they've allowed 265 plus passing yards in 6 of 11 this season. I use 265 because that is Justin Herbert's passing yardage prop tonight. So the Ravens have allowed over in 6 of 11 this season. 3 of the last 5, the only 2 that didn't in the last 5 were Bo Nix. I don't know how he didn't because they were getting blown out in that game. And then Russell Wilson last week in a game script that did not call for much passing. And then on the flip side, the Chargers defense is 10th in the National Football League in yards allowed, or rushing yards allowed per game, 7th in opponent rushing attempts per game, 23rd in opponent rushing yards per attempt. So they're not allowing many rushing attempts per game, but they're allowing yardages or big yardage off of those attempts. The Chargers defense versus running backs this season, all 10 opponents have had 18 total rush attempts that combined with their quarterback and all their running backs. The 18 is Derrick Henry's number tonight. So they haven't really allowed a substantial workload for running backs or for carries. But the only running back to have over 100 yards himself was James Conner this season. So 1 and 9 are running backs to having 100 yards against the Chargers this year. And then their pass defense, 11th in the National Football League in allowed passing yards per game, 5th in opponent yards per attempt, 8th in passer rating allowed, and they've allowed 240 passing yards in just 2 of 10 this season. That 240 is Lamar's prop. So the history this season is not good if you like Lamar Jackson over tonight.
Just from a traditional sense here, before we go through all the numbers that are out there betting-wise, I like the home team in this game. Just throwing that out there. To me, you look at the way these rosters are, the way these teams are constructed. Now, there's a little bit of a concern with the Chargers where Burrow, high-level quarterback, once he settled into the game, was awesome last week. Yep. There's no arguing that. Kansas City, when they went to the Chargers earlier in the year, and remember, the Chargers were super banged up in that game. Look, Mahomes was good, but he wasn't great. But they haven't really played any other quarterbacks other than those two this year. I mean, there's a legitimate argument to be made right now that the third best quarterback, well, Kyler Murray is the third best quarterback they played. But after that, Knicks, before he turned it on, wasn't any good. They played Justin Fields earlier in the year. And just not high-level quarterbacking that they faced other than those three. And again, Murray did not play well yesterday and lost to Seattle. So there was a little bit of a concern in that front of, all right, now they're playing their second consecutive big-time quarterback. Burrow, who, if the Bengals were good, would be the front-runner for the MVP right now, had a great second half. But here's the one difference. Cincinnati and Jamar Chase, as good as Zay Flowers is, he ain't Jamar Chase.
Right.
And I expect this Charger defense to look like the unit they've looked like the most of the year. The big question is, can they get a pass rush when passing downs against a good offensive line in Baltimore? And can you hold Derrick Henry under 75 yards?
Right.
You hold Derrick Henry under 75 yards, you're going to win this game. And for Herbert, he's been awesome the last month. He has been great. Since he's gotten healthy, he's looked like the Justin Herbert we thought he would turn into eventually. I like the Chargers outright here because of the quarterback play and their defense when this is all said and done. And Jim's a better coach than John at the moment. I don't think there's much arguing in that, especially with the way that Harbaugh's managed some of these games this year here for the Ravens.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. Jim has been a better coach this year than John. His coaching staff has been better this year than John's. And the Chargers have been playing better recently than the Ravens have. Under normal circumstances, full team's healthy, the Ravens defense looking more like the Ravens defense of past, I would think that this would be a defensive battle. But the Ravens aren't healthy. They are most likely not going to have Roquan Smith in the center of their defense tonight. They're likely to be without their starting center, Tyler Linderbaum, who's had back issues this entire week. So even if he is good to go, that's your starting center who has to bend over on 100% of his snaps and go against a 350-plus pound person on 100% of his snaps. That can't be good on your back. So I would not expect Tyler Linderbaum to be full effective for the Ravens offensive line tonight, which is why I'm very hesitant on Derrick Henry props tonight, but I am right there with you. I love the Chargers in this spot, plus the 130 on the money line as well.
Let's go to the anytime touchdown market where our guy Derrick Henry, you're laying $2.20.
Yeah.
$2.20 on this. Henry has scored in every single game this year.
Every single game.
Is tonight the night he doesn't? I mean, that price is a lot to do it. Well, unless if you're throwing it in, would basically just go in the Derrick Henry SGP on this one here, Ryan. Dobbins is minus 130. I think that's actually that price is too aggressive here. I would now lay that on Dobbins even if he scores. I don't think it's a good betting price in this one. Now, this is also the double revenge game for both the former Baltimore running backs now on the Chargers with Gus Edwards. Don't mind Gus Edwards at 4-1. I don't mind Justice Hill again at plus 475. Passing downs, screen passes, we've seen it on multiple occasions this year with Hill. And then the only other guy that I look at, it's now beyond a joke at this point with Baltimore and me in primetime games, but Rashad Bateman, where I'd want about 3-1 on Bateman before I really consider it. But I think Justice Hill is the best bet on the board if we're taking shots in the dark here down the line at plus 475 there, Ryan.
What do you think of a shot at a 2-touchdown night from J.K. Dobbins?
What's that price?
$450.
actually getting close to a fair price, which
with his revenge
which is
factor,
pretty surprising. Actually,
I like that one a lot tonight. J.K. Dobbins 2 touchdowns plus 450 on DraftKings. That is one that I would like to play. I'll probably have to look at it in another book here in the States.
I'm actually surprised that price is actually as good as that is. I would have expected them to really cut that down, but that's not bad. We talked about Quentin Johnston, you and I, before the show.
Yeah,
really starting to play well. But plus 215 is a very short price on Johnston here tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll skip on that one. All right, let's go to the quarterback end of things. Ryan, it's two guys who are playing great right now. Again, I know Lamar's coming off of his annual Pittsburgh clunker, which whatever, and Steelers just own him for whatever reason. What would you look at here? Because I only have one prop that I would even consider between these two guys tonight.
So looking at his season stats for these, he is 6-5 to the over on his attempts. Oh, he's gone over in every single. Take that back. Every game that he's gone over has been a one-score game. There are 2 games that this season that were also ended being one-score games, the Cowboys and the Commanders games, that weren't one score for the majority of it, and then the garbage time kind of allowed those teams to get back and make it a one-possession game at the end. So if you think it's going to be a one-possession game, you would like to think that Lamar Jackson goes over his pass attempts tonight. Looking at his passing completions, he's gone 5-6 this season, so nothing good there. 8-3 on his passing yardage. Last week against the Steelers ended a 6-game over streak. With how the Chargers defense has kind of been susceptible to the pass, I lean to the over on the 236. Not a confident play there, but I do lean to the over. And then the passing touchdowns, 6-5 this year. Last week ended a 4-game over streak. His interception is a plus price tonight, but Lamar Jackson has never thrown an interception on Monday Night Football. So you may think he's due and want to take a plus price, but the Chargers have not forced turnovers in 3 of their last 4 games. So I would be a little hesitant on that one. And then his total yardage is 8-3 to the over. Last week ended a 6-game over streak on that 282 passing plus rushing yards for Lamar Jackson. And then going to Justin Herbert, he is 2-8 to the over on his passing attempts at 34.5. I do not like that one over at all. Even if the Chargers, you think, have to throw to stay competitive in this one, that's not the Chargers' identity. The Chargers will run the ball any way that they can. That's Jim Harbaugh. So I don't like the over 34.5 pass attempts. 21.5 incompletions for Justin Herbert. 1-9 this year. 264 passing yards, 4-6. All 4 overs were in the last 5 games. His passing touchdowns, that 1.5, 4-6 this season, 3 overs in the last 4 games. Yes, interception, 1-9 this season. He only has 1 interception. He is the only quarterback to only throw 1 interception this season and start in all the games. And then his passing yardage plus rushing yardage is 3-7 to the over. I know that Kenny White this morning does like the over rushing yards for Justin Herbert, being that he has had to scramble. He likes to scramble at home. This is a defense that he's going to have to scramble against. So I have no problem with you taking the over on the rushing yards. Just be wary that he's only gone over in 3 of 7 on that total yardage.
The only bet I'm making between the 2 quarterbacks today is Justin Herbert to throw an interception. Okay. And, Baltimore's defense has plenty of problems. We've documented them all throughout the last few weeks and earlier in the show. They do ball hawk, though. That is the one thing they do well. And it's not like what the pass catchers for the Chargers are elite. So that would be the only one that I would do. I would look for a better price than what DK is offering. Of all these numbers you see on your screen or from DraftKings, I might be able to find a -105, maybe even on the S tonight for Herbert. By the way, speaking of these interception props, the cash cows the last month has been Caleb Williams not to throw one, since he's now on the longest streak in Bear history, which keep that in mind when we get to Thursday. Again, our schedule's a little bit different this week because of the holiday, but keep that in mind on Thursday against the Lions, which means it's time to bet the yes on that.
Yeah, thanks for jinxing it.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. The Jets play this weekend too, but they're beyond jinx already. You can't. It doesn't matter what you do; they're terrible regardless. All right, let's go to the Ravens side of things. All right, Derrick Henry time here. 18.5 attempts. You mentioned it earlier, Ryan. Seems light.
Yeah.
Even in a game where, I like the Chargers, but I think this is just going to be one of those higher scoring games across the board where this could be very easily a Henry 20 carry game. But like I said, if the Chargers hold Derrick Henry under 75, they're going to win the game. So in theory, this might be one of those weirdo ones for me where I like the over on the attempts, but we'll take him under 84.5 because of the way that I think this game will play out with the Chargers winning here tonight.
Well, I don't know if I fully agree with that one, just because I had mentioned earlier that the Chargers do allow more yards on it per attempt than attempts in general. Also, Derrick Henry has only gone over on attempts in games that the Ravens are blowing out their opponents. He's gone under in all of the games that they've been close. Let me get the actual stats for you. Mm-hmm. 4 and 7 this year to the over on his attempts, that 18.5, only overs in games that the Ravens were up 2+ scores. That rushing yardages, though, of 84.5, he is 6 and 5 to the over, so that one doesn't necessarily correlate together. But yeah, that reception, he only needs 1, 8 and 3 to the over on his reception. He has 7 of the 8 games with 1 catch. The only time he had more than 1 catch was the game against Buffalo. He had 3. But that's just, he's not their pass catching back. Even if you are thinking he's going to get a screen or something, he's just not on the field on pass catching downs. That is Justice Hill. So I wouldn't make a confident play on Derrick Henry to record a reception, even though it is a 215. If you want to throw it on a same game parlay, just like the touchdown, it's your money, so you do what you want with it.
Very good, Ryan.
His total yardage, 94.5 rushing plus receiving yards, 7-4 to the over this season. Most of those overs, he got the entire way with rushing over, so not great, again, for receiving for Derrick Henry. Then Zay Flowers has gone over his receptions in 6 of 11. Only gone over his receiving yards in 5 of 11. He's gone over the longest reception in 4 of 11 and is only 3 and 8 on the anytime touchdown. So no confident plays for Zay Flowers. And then we get to Mark Andrews. His line is at 3.5 receptions. He's gone 5 and 6 to the over, 32.5 receiving yards, 6 and 5. He's gone over in 5 of the last 7 and has at least 10 yards per catch in the 6 of the last 7. His longest reception has gone over in 4 of 11 this season, and he has an anytime touchdown in 4 of 11 this season. But all 4 of those are in the last 6 games.
Let's go to the Chargers end of things, and this is a little more complicated here. Will Disley, let's start there. Yes, what a sentence that is. Has really become quite a target here for Justin Herbert over the last month. Now, does that mean I want to bet Disley over 4.5 receptions or over 44.5 receiving yards? Not really. But he's the one that I'm most interested in. Johnston and McConkey, again, Ladd has really turned into a Welker type here for Herbert over the last few weeks. And then, again, this is kind of hard. This is a hard team to really handicap because all their weapons, they have no elite guys, but all their guys are good, and they're all very similar, even though they have different skill sets. So this is one of the harder teams to handicap prop-wise in the entire NFL for me.
Will Disley has gone over his receptions in 3 of 7 this year. His receiving yards in he's 3 of 10, 2 of 8 on the yardage. His longest reception has gone over in 3 of the 10. His anytime touchdown, he had his first touchdown of the year last week. So having 5 catches from Will Disley is a lot to ask for, especially when this offense has shown that they don't want to pass first early, get the lead, and then run the ball, control the clock. So, yeah. But talking about Ladidi McConkey, if you want to go over that 5.5 receptions to get that plus price, that's his career high, 6 catches. So you'll need him to get his career high. It is his rookie year, but you'll need him to get 6 catches for the 3rd time this year, or he'll go under or set his career high, whichever. Okay.
It's going to be a career high if you need him to get there. Yeah. But look, for Ryan, I'll just throw this out there with the Chargers. this was supposed to be somewhat of a transition year for them.
Yeah.
Where, all right, if things go really right, you'll make the playoffs, maybe as a 10-7, 9-8 team. This is a really big litmus test game for them tonight. They beat Cincinnati last week. Good start. You beat a team that's talented, that has had everything go against them. That's a game where once the Chargers blew the 21-point lead, you thought, oh, here we go again. Same old Chargers. No, what did they do? They actually held and they actually won the game. If you're going to be a legitimate playoff threat, and the next 5 games, this is, including last week, this is a pretty tough 6-game stretch, all things considered, for the Chargers, including last week. You're a dog at home against the Ravens tonight. I have no idea what that Atlanta line is going to end up being after we see. I know that right now it's either 1.5 or pick, depending on play where you're at. You know there'll be a dog at Kansas City on Sunday night in 2 weeks. They played Tampa, who's going to be in the middle of a hot streak at that point, and then they played the Broncos before ending the season with arguably the 2 worst teams in the NFL in New England and the Raiders. But if this team is a legitimate threat in the AFC to potentially be more than the team that wins 1 game in the playoffs, like a team that gets to an AFC title game, or really at this point, a team that is capable of upsetting Kansas City in a playoff game, you got to show it these next few weeks. They passed the first test. It's important to pass it tonight. And as I've said, I think they will, beyond that defense and Justin Herbert being the better quarterback for one night over Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible that Justin Herbert can be the better quarterback tonight, especially with how bad the Ravens defense has been this year. But I do have a note, playing on Monday nights, Lamar Jackson, scrap that. Let's go to a different one. Lamar Jackson versus top 5 defenses in his career. He is 7-8 straight up, 5-9 against the spread. Total is 6 overs, 9 unders. And the last 2 seasons, he has not beaten the top 5 defense that he's gone against. He's 0-4 straight up, 0-4 against the spread, and the total is 0-4 or 4-0 to the under. So not great history there for Lamar Jackson. But he has faced the Chargers 4 times in his career. He is 3-1. He did lose a playoff game as well. And then if you limit it down to games in SoFi Stadium, he's 2-0 against the Chargers. If you add in the Rams, he's 1-0. He's thrown 7 touchdowns, no interceptions in SoFi Stadium. And his averages against the Chargers, or in SoFi Stadium, period, 15 completions on 24.6 attempts, 183 yards under his yardages, and 10.7 carries and just under 60 yards rushing. So both of those would be under, or most of those would be under his props for Lamar Jackson.
All right. Do we need a break in order to get the power rankings, or could we go ahead with them, Drew? He gave me the thumbs up. We're going to do the NFL power rankings today, and then we're going to do something different with the college football end of things in a few moments. But this is the only time Ryan and I are together on the desk here this week. Our schedule's a lot different. Alex and Kenny will be here the next 2 days of 9 a.m., but Football Frenzy on a Friday is now on Wednesday this week with myself, Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo at 2 o'clock, and then we're off on Thursday. So we'll have be sure to watch that Football Frenzy on Wednesday for everything you need to know about Thanksgiving Day in the NFL and in college football. And then on Friday, it's just a morning show on Friday at 8 a.m. with Alex and I getting you ready for Friday in college football and, quite honestly, college hoops, since it's a monster week in college hoops as well. All right, this is entering tonight's game in the NFL. So Ryan and I both can change this based off of what happens tonight. And quite frankly, if the Chargers win tonight, this will likely stand pat of what I have right now, unless if the Chargers win by 3 scores, and then there will be even more of a change if it's something like that. Detroit's have won for the second consecutive week. Kansas City stays at 2. Philly stays at 3. Buffalo stays at 4. No problem all the way across there. Baltimore falls to 5. Actually, they were at 5 last week, so they fell to 5 last week. They're still there. The only movement here is the Chargers moved up on the virtue of not having their game yet. Green Bay stood pat. Pittsburgh fell to 8. Minnesota stayed at 9. Minidar, you can't say it anymore. Denver's at 10 for me because, quite frankly, I have no idea what to do after 9. No clue.
Okay.
No clue. I mean, at this rate, it's like, all right, I think all those NFC South teams stink. I think all of the NFC West teams are all about the 12th to 18th best teams in the NFL right now, where none of them are elite, but I don't want to say they're bad. The Texans lost as an 8.5-point favorite at home to a team that's covered one game all year in Tennessee.
Yep.
You can't put them in the top 10 anymore. So Denver, on the virtue of honestly playing great football, though, since that getting shellacked in Baltimore, they go to number 10 because I don't know who else to put there at this point, Ryan.
Yeah, I haven't put the Broncos in my top 10.
I like the Denver's better, honestly.
But you had taken the Texans out of your top 10.
They've been out for a while now.
I couldn't quite do it. I get that they lost in a game that they shouldn't have against the Titans, but the Texans remain in my top 10. They're at number 9. But my top 2 remains unchanged for I don't know how many weeks in a row now, but the Lions, number 1, Chiefs, number 2, the Bills, 3, the Eagles hop the Ravens to 4. I just like what I'm seeing out of this Eagles team right now. Nick Sirianni, 43-19 as a head coach. The Baltimore Ravens aren't on the same level of defense as the Eagles. So if it was between those two, I would have the Eagles because of their defense and their ability to slow down the run game, which the Ravens clearly need. I do have the Chargers at 6. That's funny. We have the same 5 and 6. And then I have the Vikings at 7. I really wanted to move them down. They should have lost that game.
Hold on a second. Green Bay is actually 7, correct? Or are they actually 8?
Green Bay, I get they're tied at 7.
Okay.
So they're right with Minnesota. But yes, Steelers at 8. I moved them down as well. I wanted to move them down further, but with everything else that happened in the league, I couldn't move people over them. Same thing with the Texans and the Commanders. All 3 of those teams losing in games that they shouldn't have, but still remain in my top 10.
Yeah, the Commanders, it's now a 3-week thing where they just have not looked like the same team, and I'm concerned about, forget Jaden Daniels, I'm concerned that the league figured out Kingsbury. That's just what we saw in Arizona. Yeah. We always thought it was Call of Duty in Arizona. Maybe it was just Cliff Kingsbury's offense gets sorted out by the rest of the league, and is Washington still going to make the playoffs? Yeah, they still can, but they just made their path significantly more difficult than it needed to be, especially after the train wreck yesterday against the Cowboys. All right, before we hit a break, Ryan, let's check in with the chat here.
Yeah, we've had a couple different polls for our chat today. Laulea started the show asking which one of us are going to have 3 or have Notre Dame at 3 in our power rankings, and then another statement. And then we got Agent 87, Big Monday for Denver. Their playoff position with either one of these teams losing tonight. Agent 87 loves the Bo Nix and the Rookie of the Year talk. We asked which Harbaugh brother is most likely to get the win tonight. 80% of votes said Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers get the win tonight. And then we also asked which quarterback is most likely to throw an interception. 60% of our voters said Justin Herbert throws an interception and Lamar Jackson does not. So,
well, we'll see how it all plays out here tonight. We'll have more from Vinny Magliulo in a moment, but we'll take a 1-minute break. When we get back, we're going to predict what we think will be the final bracket. We have to throw the power ratings are in flames right now in college football, just totally in flames. So we're just going to say, all right, what do we think is going to happen over the last 2 weeks? And our predictions for the bracket, which I'm fully ready to throw out again after next week, after what we saw over the weekend of college football. And Vinny, when we get back on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy. Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick. Vinny will join us momentarily, but first, we threw our power rankings in the garbage, at least for 1 week. Not really, but for the purposes of the show, we did. So we're now going to try our best to predict out what's going to happen the last 2 weeks in college football, and we are going to give you what we have entering the last 2 weeks of the college football season, regular season 1 week, conference championships the next. Predicting the bracket, and Drew Dog, you can throw mine up right here, right now. So there you go. The biggest change actually comes right out of the chute. I have Ohio State winning the Big Ten championship game in the rematch against Oregon. So I will ask Vinny in a moment who would be favored in that game, with both Ohio State and Oregon huge favorites at home against Michigan and Washington, respectively, this week. But I just think the Buckeyes are the better football team in that game. Look, home field mattered in that game in Eugene. And in the end, Ohio State, I think, wins the rematch. They get the 1 seed because of it. And then Oregon gets the 5 seed because of it, because only the conference champions get a bye. Georgia, who went from not close to the SEC title game to in the SEC title game in 1 day. Thank you for beating UMass, my friends. They get the 2 because I have them winning the SEC. I have SMU beating Miami in the ACC title game. So I have SMU at 3. I have Boise State winning out and holding off Big 12 champion Arizona to get the final bye. Arizona State, I should say. Arizona State, I have getting the 12 seed, taking on Oregon in the Pac-12 rivalry game that's now Big 10 versus Big 12, because of course it is. And then just going down the bracket. I don't really know what to do with Texas, other than the fact that I think they will get penalized if they get blown out by Georgia a second time in the SEC title game. So that's why I have them at 8. This is also a little bit of a, hey, if they lose to A&M in a close game, they probably will still get a home game, even though I'm not sure they deserve to get one. I have Indiana at 9, which I'm sure a lot of people will be agitated by. But look, I don't care that they lost by 3 touchdowns to Ohio State. Ohio State's the number 1 team in the country to me. If they beat Purdue by as much as I think they will this weekend, they'll move back up the ladder. Penn State's the 6th. Boy, Penn State was fortunate because P.J. Fleck had the Antonio Pierce math skills in that game on Saturday, kicking a field goal down 4, never got the ball back. Penn State gets the 6th. They host 2-loss Miami, who ends up getting the last at-large bid because of all the carnage, Ryan. And then 7 versus 10, I have Notre Dame, who, boy, Notre Dame looks good. I know they haven't played that hard of a schedule, but boy, they just destroyed Army on Saturday night in a game that was over quickly. And I have them taking on Tennessee. Now, the reason for Tennessee over Indiana, I think Tennessee is going to struggle against Vanderbilt, and they're going to be fortunate to get out of Nashville with a win. And I think the committee's looking for a reason to keep Tennessee out, and this just might keep them lower. So that's my bracket as of right now. And if Vanderbilt beats Tennessee or Miami loses to Syracuse, we're doing this all over again next week, and I have no idea what we'll do in that scenario.
Well, so when I asked you if you wanted to do this, I thought we'd have more differences.
That's not good.
And so I went and had to shake some things up and predict a little more upsets.
You don't have to shake it up, right? It shows that we were on the same wave. Oh, wow, you really shook it up.
Yeah, but I do have the same Big Ten champion, ACC champion, SEC champion. I do think Ohio State wins the one in Indianapolis. They get their revenge there. Oregon becomes the 5, but ultimately, I think that makes Oregon hungrier, and they get to meet them again in the semifinal, and Oregon wins that one.
Okay.
I do still have Oregon as my power rated number 1, but Ohio State, I do think, wins the Big Ten. So there you go. Georgia, same reasons you said. I think Texas A&M beats Texas this weekend, gets into the SEC championship game, and then Georgia handles their business, wins the SEC. SMU wins the ACC. I don't like Miami. Don't want to have them in the playoff period, but they get into the ACC championship. They lose the ACC championship. They end up in the playoff. SMU is the ACC champion. They get to 3. And then the fun begins at 4 because Jeff's number 4 goes down in their conference championship. So Arizona State, I do think, wins the Big 12. I do think Kansas State beats Iowa State this weekend.
Yep,
and then Arizona State has a rematch against BYU. and I think Arizona State ultimately wins that one again. So then going to number 5, Oregon. Number 6, I have Penn State, just like Jeff. Notre Dame, number 7, just like Jeff. But then this is where I started to have a little fun. Texas, again, I don't think should be in the playoff if they lose to Texas A&M, but they are power rated. Have been power rated at the top all year, so I do think that they'll end up being put in by the committee. So they'll be the 8. They get to play another SEC team in Tennessee at 9. Gives us an SEC prove-it spot to go into the number 1 team in the round of 8. And then so I have Indiana at 10, giving us a Notre Dame versus Indiana in-state rivalry matchup in the first round of the playoff. Ultimately would go into Georgia, so good luck there. But then Miami would get the 11, and at number 12, the team that has yet to lose a game on the road this year, a team that lost the Mountain West Championship at home, a team that lost earlier this season at home, a team that has a chance to go to beat their rival this week, go into Boise, beat Boise on their home turf to make up for their last 2 losses and win your conference and get a bid into the college football playoff, because I think they are more deserving than a Tulane or Army team that would have 2 losses in that case. So the UNLV Rebels are going to the college football playoff.
Tulane versus UNLV would be a very interesting debate by the committee. I would be on the opposite side of the fence in that scenario.
I know.
Where I would even be in the camp that if we get real carnage in the Big 12, that the Mountain West champion and Tulane should get in over the Big 12 champ, but that's a different discussion for a different time.
How much carnage are we getting?
Look, it's the Big 12. Anything's in play at this point. What if we get Texas Tech against Baylor in the Big 12 title game? All right, let's bring Vinny in. All right, Vincenzo, a little different this week because of the carnage in college football. Alabama, Ole Miss, both gone. Again, it's going to be a very interesting last 2 weeks across the college football landscape. And, of course, because we said it at the top of the show, make sure you get your $5 card in for potential at $25,000 guaranteed on the college football rivalry.
As many as you
jackpot
want.
Card. As many as you want. $5. All the money goes to the players.
No points.
Just
Pick the winners.
Yeah, 15 games.
Pick the winners. How easy was it this weekend? Jeff, I noticed that you had Boise with a first-round bye.
That's what the committee currently has.
The committee has it.
Yes. So I'm just following the committee on that.
Polls and committees don't make prices. By the way, Alabama and Mississippi would still be favored over several of the teams.
Oh, I believe it.
In the committee's bracket.
I believe it.
But you were asking me too about Ohio State and
we're
Oregon.
Barring a shocker at the shoe this week.
Yeah.
Which, boy, that would be a nuclear winter in Columbus if that happened again for the 4th consecutive year Michigan beats Ohio State. What would you make Oregon and Ohio State now?
I have Ohio State on a neutral,
which it is in Indianapolis.
I have them as 2.5 to 3. Ohio State.
That feels right.
They're playing much better now than they played in Eugene, and that was a big statement the other day. So. Even though they didn't start out, but they haven't started out particularly great in the last month. But they're playing their best ball of the year right now. So I've got them 2.5 to 3 against Oregon right now, in terms of power rating.
What from this weekend, Vinny? Where again we talked with Chris. Saturday was a good day for you guys because of
Saturday was a good day
because of that. But I mean, it's. This year in college football, and we've talked about it all year, this 12-team playoff, like, how many people, like, just from and I wonder how this helps to handle, because people are going to bet college football regardless. But in normal circumstance, Ole Miss was already done with 2 losses. And that was one of the most bet games of the day, the Ole Miss Florida game.
Well, I don't think they were done. Do you think
if we were in the old scenario, I'm saying,
like a year ago,
14 playoff,
they would have been done a month ago.
Exactly, that's my point.
After their first,
the second loss,
once they were not in the SEC championship,
it was over.
So
same with the Bama Oklahoma
True.
game, which Chris said that like all these money line parlays went through.
Yeah.
Just how much do you? Again, people are going to bet college football regardless, but how much do you think this 12-team playoff has helped handle even further this year, and will help handle especially this week in an amazing week?
Well, it's going to help it enormously because you have to remember too what we started to see in these bowl games in recent years is that people just players opting out and teams. So you've got a series of games now with with 12 teams vying for the national championship, where they have to play. I mean, anybody opts out now. I mean, then that's on them too, right? Certainly if they're going to go pro, but I don't necessarily see it happening and being as predominant. So the fact that these teams are playing for something, in this case a national championship, to advance to try to get to the national championship. The more games that mean something, the better. Because, again, what we've seen in recent years with these bowl games is you just don't know who's playing right up until, 24 hours, 48 hours before some of these games, and players are just – the opt-outs are more difficult to deal with than the injuries. At least the injuries you have a pretty good idea of. You know somebody's not going to be 100%. I mean, the opt-outs – I'll tell you right now, they're as bad as load management, maybe worse.
No, nothing's that, Vinny.
Well, it's close. Trust me. So we not knowing, but at least with the opt-outs, I mean, So I correct, yeah. I mean,
the load management.
The load management.
In the NBA,
here's the thing. Here's the thing too. When customers are walking up to the counter, it's a little sidebar, but when customers are walking up to the counter and say, "What's the injury? What's the NBA? Give me I want to bet this game tonight. Can you tell me who's questionable?" And then you have to make, you have to, flip a coin, right? Or just like, who's got load management tonight?
Well, you could also be like Joel Embiid at this point and decide the games aren't a requirement for getting your contract. So that's just whatever. The whole thing's nonsense. A good thing the Sixers are imploding anyway. All right. I want to keep it with college before we close out with the game tonight, Vinny. Just what has been hit so far in the short time that you guys have had these games up? Because I was talking about it with young McCormick over here. My list is always an expansive list of what are we considering this week? I normally have a nice split between favorites and underdogs. I have 70% underdogs as the potentials for me this week. I don't know why that happens to be the case. Maybe that just is more that I happen to have something on every Big 12 game, and every team in that conference feels about even, other than Oklahoma State right now. But what has been hit so far over the last 6 hours or so since the guys opened these? Well, if you look at college, you're talking about college now, right? Yes,
because college opened this morning here at South Point. The first game on Friday, Ball State and Ohio.
Oh, of course.
I mean, why wouldn't it, right? The games moved 2 points down to 14.5. With Ohio favored. So they were 16.5 on the opener. So Ball State getting the early betting attention there. Texas San Antonio, they took 8.5. Sure. They took 8 and 7.5 that's against Army, right?
Yep.
Boston College. So Holstein. Look, both these teams really in different directions right now too, right? Pitt has not played since that loss, and of course Holstein's injury I think has played into it. BC's playing terrific right now, and they're up to a full point to 5. So that came in. Jeff, I know the game that you're really wanting to know about is the Connecticut UMass game, right? Where Connecticut opened as a 11-point favorite. They're down to 10-point favorites. I knew you'd be interested in that one. Let's see. UCLA down to 9.5 against Fresno this week.
The UCLA one's a weird one, Vinny, because they can't get bowl eligible now after losing to USC.
So I think that's got a lot to do with their mindset probably. So that not a real shock there. Oklahoma getting some support. Now the game opened lower as a result of last week. It opened at 6.5. Oklahoma getting 6.5 this morning at LSU. That game is down to 6.
Boy, that's tough now, because that you're kind of asking for lightning to strike twice back-to-back weeks now with OU.
Yeah,
that one's on the card.
No, I know. Yep, I know it is.
Arkansas, your alma mater.
I got to tell you right now, Vinny. They're
betting against your alma mater, Jeffrey. They took the 4.
I want this thing to get as low as humanly possible because I want to come the other way.
Okay.
That's all. That's all.
And not for sentimental. It's business.
No. I think we've actually gone too far on the alma mater where we had them overrated before at the beginning of the season, and now we have them underrated.
Yep.
I think we've gone too far the other direction. Actually,
Notre Dame up to 7.5.
That's interesting.
From 7 against SC.
That's interesting because SC. So I just want to talk about this real quick because that was a game where actually the dog popped for me. So I'm against what the market has moved on. Where this is the best team Notre Dame has played in a while.
It is.
And this is still not, again, this USC team is loaded with talent, but we know their issues. They find ways to lose except for last week. This is a great time for USC to try to spoil a season here.
Yeah.
Where if USC wins this game,
you knock them out.
Yeah, I think you do. Even with all the carnage, I don't know how you can justify 10-2 Notre Dame being in with their best win being Louisville and losing to a 7-5 USC and a 7-5 Northern Illinois.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
probably does knock them.
Probably does. Boy, again, Notre Dame. I think their ceiling is pretty good right now. All things considered, but this is a weird spot. Final week of the season, Vinny. I do want to ask you before we get out of here and go on the NFL game, the Iron Bowl, where you guys opened higher than what the market is sitting at right now at 12. Where I'm very curious. And we'll bring this up on Wednesday as well. Auburn needs a win to get bowl eligible.
Yes.
And what headspace is Alabama in right now? Where this program, goodness, it's been almost a decade since they've lost 3 in a season. It's been basically a different time in history since they've lost 4 in a year. But I don't know what headspace Alabama can possibly be in after what happened to them last week.
That's a great observation. I think the headspace is this. The game hasn't moved. So
right.
It's sitting at 12. Will it get some attention? Yeah. I think and Auburn played good. There was a lot of emotion in that game the other day. So and again, when you have these rivalry games, it's the season, right, for Auburn and really now Alabama from from a recruiting standpoint, although I think they win the recruiting battle. I think they've already won it. It's a stepping stone for next season. Let's face it, right? And they still probably want to get to a bigger payday from a bowl perspective, a bigger bowl. You're going to find out a lot about Alabama. I mean, they were held to 3 points last week. I mean, think about it. They were absolutely outclassed, outplayed. The emotion that and credit Oklahoma for the way they played last week. So. I think they're going to get support. I'm not saying they're going to win again. I'm not saying they're going to blow this team out, but I think Alabama at home to finish the regular season, you're going to see a different Alabama team than you saw a week ago.
And then I have to bring up the big game of the night. Actually, I'm sorry for Saturday, A&M and Texas. Where look, I hasn't moved since you opened it, but 6 feels like a ton of points to be getting with the Aggies. And I'm not sure if that thing stays there all week, in all honesty.
No, I think the game gets a lot of betting attention. And again, the Aggies still, in transition, right? And so I think they'll get some support. I think it's going to be a good 2-way betting game because Texas can't afford. A&M's not going to the playoff, but Texas, they would love nothing more than to spoil their in-state rival to not be able to go. So a terrific game, a great game in the book. That's going to be, listen, even though some teams are out of it in terms of the playoff, there's still going to be a lot of, good games. The fact that it's rivalry week is going to add to that. And these teams still want to perform against their rivals. So I think that game's going to get a lot of betting attention. There's no doubt about it.
That one's already, in a couple spots, already moved to 5.5.
5.5.
Yeah,
they took the
5.5 last night.
Not real surprised that there's a take early on that.
Maybe Texas actually is good and just had a bad day against Georgia. Maybe Texas is just beating a lot of mediocre teams this year. It's weird to say 11 games in with a team that was supposed to be one of the best teams in the country going into the year that we have no idea if they're actually good or not. very weird.
And that's a great point too, because everybody, that has been, or a lot has been made about Indiana's schedule. Well, there's plenty of teams like that. You play the schedule,
Texas,
and you perform.
I would argue
right?
Texas's schedule is the exact same strength as Indiana.
So.
And Indiana went on a road against Ohio State, and Texas had the good opponent at home.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see a lot over the next week. A lot of chaos potentially.
Good week. Great. Listen, one of the busiest betting weekends of the year.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, it
college
starts
hoops too, right?
Oh, you saw the college games. Particularly the games over in Maui right now are great. Down to Virgin Islands, some really good matchups. Pay attention to a lot of these teams. Start looking at your college basketball teams. You haven't started looking yet. Start looking at there's some teams out there that I think are going to surprise some people. Obviously you've got the Blue Bloods and the name brand recognition teams, but there's some teams out there that are sneaky good, and I think now's the time to start taking note of them.
All right, Vinny, before we go, you guys are sitting at 3 flat.
Yep.
And, the rest of the market just went back to 3 as well. So the Baltimore action's starting to flow in here.
Yeah, it looks like it, even with I think their best defender is
Roquan Smith.
Right?
Roquan
is
is
out,
officially
right?
out now. Yes.
So, look, I think again a real good betting game. The two brothers going at it here. Two teams that are in the playoff hunt. Ravens trying to really reassert themselves. And when you look at the Ravens a month ago, and they beat the Bills, and they were anointed as the team to beat. Obviously, they've fallen. Their pass defense isn't not good. And now you've got a completely different mindset and vibe in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So, look, I think it's a great game. They've been laying 2.5 and taking 3. It's no secret. We don't need the Ravens by 3 tonight. But good betting game, and it's going to continue to be good betting right up until kickoff, and then plenty of in-game as well.
All right, that's what we got right now. Vinny, thank you as always. Ryan,
all right, guys.
Thank you. Jerry, Drew Dog, good work. Vince from home today, good job as well. We will see you a little bit of a different schedule this week. Alex and Kenny are here at 9 a.m. the next 2 days. And then on Wednesday, myself, Vincenzo, and Chris Andrews, who we saw earlier in the show, will be back for football frenzy on a Friday on Wednesday. You got that?
Wednesday edition.
Don't ask me to repeat that.
Okay, you got it. Good. Right here at Sports by the Book. And also, again, one last reminder. Remember, $5 a card. The college rivalry jackpot parlay card. Winner is guaranteed at least a share of $25,000. Could very easily be more than that. All the extra money goes back to the players here at the South Point. If you're up in Summerlin, go say hello to our friend Kaluch.
Yep.
At the Rampart, get
Same
your
card.
tickets in there. Or if you're in Mesquite, Casablanca, Virgin River, if you're making the trip from down north, if you want to just stop there and get your cards in, go forward there as well. We'll see you again on this channel at 9 a.m. tomorrow with Alex and Kenny. We'll see myself, Vinny, Chris on Wednesday at 2 o'clock right here on Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy.